Hello there, it's May, which means it's Star Wars month.
Yay,
and I can't think of a better way to
hooray.
celebrate that than by making a month's worth of videos that's probably going to be marked for copyright. But that's okay because I'm not monetized. So I'm going back to my roots by diving into a galaxy far, far away. And I can't think of a better way to do that than by telling you all about Wat Tambor. You know, that guy that looks like a fusion of Emperor Zurg and Gumby. Wat Tambor, no relation to Jeffrey Tambor, was the foreman of the Techno Union. But what's the Techno Union, you might ask? No, it is not an organization of DJs who come together to negotiate wages, benefits, and working conditions. The Techno Union is a mega corporation made up of various tech companies across the Star Wars galaxy. But what's crazy is that the Techno Union was such a mega corporation that they had its own senator in the Galactic Senate. A senator named Guma Sam, seen here conveniently next to Sheev Palpatine. Can you imagine if Disney or some other corporation had their own senators in the Senate? I mean, I guess we kind of do, they're called lobbyists. But speaking of Disney, let's use them to try to understand what the Techno Union is. So let's just think of the Techno Union as Disney for a second. They both have their main assets, like Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm. But then they also have smaller subsidiaries, like the History Channel, National Geographic, ESPN, and even some ABC-owned local television stations. The Techno Union has their main assets as well, along with other smaller subsidiaries. So who is Wat Tambor? He's Bob Iger. The main difference is that Wat Tambor and his Techno Union aren't trying to milk their main assets dry. They're manufacturing armaments for both sides of the Clone Wars. But then you're gonna say, how could that be? Wat Tambor was in that meeting with the Separatist Council when he pledged his battle droids to Count Dooku and the Confederacy of Independent Systems. He's clearly a separatist. I mean, that's not technically true, because Wat Tambor and the Techno Union officially maintain neutrality throughout the Clone Wars.
The Republic would not dare attack us. The Techno Union has corporate neutrality.
But I mean, come on, we all know what side Tambor was really on. But like I said previously, it's all about subsidiaries. Okay, so the Techno Union's main assets are the Bagtoid Industries. We're talking about the Bagtoid Armor Workshop, the Bagtoid Combat Automata, the Bagtoid Fleet Ordnance. These are all the companies that manufacture the droid armies and fleets. Basically, if you saw it shooting at the good guys in episodes 1 through 3 and all the stuff in between, it was designed and built by the Techno Union. But subsidiaries, that's the key. The Techno Union subsidiaries were companies like Blastech, Republic Sinar Systems, and the Kuwat Drive Yards. These companies manufactured armaments for the Republic during the Clone Wars, primarily Blastech. They manufactured the famous DC-15 blaster rifles used by the Republic's clone armies, and most of the other blasters that you see throughout the entire franchise. So of course Wat Tambor joined the CIS because he just wanted a war to break out so that he could make money. Wat Tambor isn't Bob Iger, he's Dick Cheney. That's probably not a good analogy because it would make this guy Count Dooku. And that just doesn't feel accurate at all.
Now watch this drive.
So just keep in mind that there are definitely people who know more about these sort of things than I do. So if you want to learn more about war profiteering, I'd encourage you to do so. Or you could just watch Lord of War, that's what I did. So I'll just stick with things I actually know about. But being a war profiteer isn't even the worst of this guy's crimes. I mean, yeah, war profiteering is pretty evil. But this guy would go to planets and be like, I like this place, you all belong to me now. Not work for, belong. He did this with Quarmendi, Ryloth, and Mustafar. But the thing is that he sucked at it. He blew up Quarmendi in a childish, if I can't have it, no one can, pitiful fit, after Plo Koon and the Wolfpack liberated it. On Ryloth, he resorted to using Twi'leks as living shields so that he could buy time so that he could get away with more treasures that he doesn't even need because he's already loaded from all the war profiteering that he does. So he's also a war criminal on top of everything else. And on Mustafar, he made the native Mustafarians pay rent to live on their own planet, while they were being forced to mine resources from their land for the Techno Union. Can you imagine just showing up one day to some other people's homes and being like, you all work for me now, start digging? I mean, I can because I paid attention in history class, I know that all these countries exist. So yeah, art is a reflection of reality. It's interesting though, because when I was doing research for this video, I really didn't know all that much about Wat Tambor except that he sounded cool.
The Techno Union Army is at your disposal, Count.
I thought I was going to learn about a guy who genuinely thought he was doing the right thing for his people by joining the Confederacy. That he and all the other Separatist leaders were just more unfortunate pawns that fell into Palpatine's trap. Boy, was I wrong. He's just another tycoon that wants to expand his hoard of riches no matter the cost. And it's a shame too, because personally I honestly thought that the CIS was the right choice for a governing body in the Star Wars universe. A confederacy of independent systems free to govern their systems the way they want to, instead of being forced to subscribe to the dogma of one system. It just seems implausible. But maybe that's just more of a reflection of my personal politics than anything else. Plus, the CIS got it right by using droids to fight their battles instead of using the autocracy that is a clone army. But that could be a topic for a whole nother video. So I'll just leave it as this. Droids and robots are not people, and I'm sick of the writers trying to make me feel like they are. And I'll die on that hill. But anyways, the Clone Wars was the conflicts fought between two sides that were secretly being controlled by the same one guy, while both sides were also being armed and built by different but still just one guy. That means the Wat Tambor was probably the richest being in the whole galaxy, and in a way he was the second most powerful being in the galaxy at one point. And I don't even think he knew that, but Palpatine knew it. Wat Tambor was essentially the paper trail that could lead people right to Palpatine's plan. That's why the other Separatist leaders had to go, and then the newly formed Galactic Empire could seize control of the Techno Union's assets, for complete and no strings attached control. So it makes sense that Palpatine would cleverly select each member of the Separatist Council to be his pawns. Each of them were greedy business tycoons one way or another, plus I'm willing to bet that Palpatine has something to do with each of them rising to power, since that's kind of a gray area for some of them. So when you add their position of power and their lust for greed, you get the perfect group of fools who will opt into going to war for questionable reasons at best. Except for you, you're cool.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this. And I love you.
Also, I just realized this while editing this video. Everyone in this scene is so surprised when the Republic turns up with such a massive army so quickly. But Wat Tambor must have known something about it because he supplied that army with the blasters they're using. So did he know about this army and just kept it a secret from everyone else because he's even greasier than we thought? Or was he like, oh, that's where that massive order of blasters came from? We may never know. I'm not saying he or any of the other Separatist leaders deserved what they got. I mean, who am I to judge? Who do I look like, God? So what is Tambor's legacy? Wat Tambor was a Skokan business tycoon born approximately in the year 97 BBY and died in 19 BBY, since years moved backwards in Star Wars for some reason. Wat Tambor was a father, a grandfather, an all-around total piece of shit. What he lacked in charisma, he made up for in wealth and an impressive 6'6" build. Throughout his career as a prominent engineer, logistics expert, war profiteer, and war criminal, he led multiple military operations on various planets, all of which resulted in utter and total failure. This gave him the reputation amongst his co-workers as a ruthless coward and greedy bastard who had absolutely no regard for the lives of other sentient beings, unless they could make him money. But despite all of his massive flaws, and I mean massive flaws, we can still learn a lot from Wat Tambor. Like, I don't know, make sure your fancy suits has a vocabulary that actually works so you don't look like a fool in front of Sir Christopher Lee. Oh, and don't be greedy, I guess, or else you'll be killed by a very angry Canadian. But seriously, I guess a real lesson that we could learn from Wat Tambor is even if you seem like you have a pretty small and insignificant role, your impact may be bigger than you think, for good or for bad, but hopefully for good. Wat Tambor was 78 years old. Wat Tambor was survived by his son, Wat Tambor II, but not for long because shortly after his death, Darth Vader stormed Skako Minor and killed the Tambors and all their loyalists, and also survived by a grandson, somehow, named Jewel Tambor. How did Jewel Tambor survive a classic Vader onslaught? I don't know, hopefully in a fashion similar to how Grogu survived Order 66. So in case Disney wants to milk Star Wars for even more spin-off series ideas, there you go. Thank you and take care.